Pottery Workshop, Part 1 with Joe Leach, Melrose High School art instructor and creator of Dungan Rock Pottery.
Put it on the holes, put the holes in the bat pins. You always have to have a bat on here, otherwise you'd tear your hands apart if you hit them when the wheel's going. So we'll fit the bat on the wheel, make sure it's laying down straight. And then probably the best thing to do is to dampen that wheel head, but get the standing water off of it with an elephant's ear sponge. Okay, we'll let that dry a little bit. This is the elephant's ear sponge. We have a pointed needle or drape stick. We have another stick with a sponge on the end so we can get down into, get the water out of narrow-necked bottles and vases. We have just a simple wooden trimming tool to trim the excess clay away from the foot, and we have a twisted wire with two wooden handles on. This can be fish line, it can be whatever. It helps to have it twisted though because it actually cuts away clay. If you use just one wire, it'll slip in between the particles of clay and then and they'll rejoin themselves. So this actually removes, by having it twisted, removes that thickness of clay, and then it won't stick back down to the bat. Okay, we'll start with a cylinder and make sure there's no standing water or juice on top of the wheel head, and throw the clay down so it sticks to the wheel head. And that's the only reason for this being called throwing clay. I heard another version the other day about centrifugal force. As the wheel turns, it throws the clay out, and I don't buy that at all. I think whoever described the process saw a potter throw the clay down on the wheel head to make it stick. We're using a Brent CXC wheel with a rheostat that I can run with my foot. The wheel head is turning counterclockwise, and the oriented goes clockwise, so that the clay is moving around in this direction and into this hand, so that if I brace this forearm against my leg and my body and push against it, it has to go into the center, and it will also come up. For every action this way, there's going to be a reaction going up. And I use this hand, then touching the hand, to push down. So I'm pushing in and down at the same time. In what do they call those isometric exercises? Now I've got my elbow right in the pocket of my hip, so I can just lean. All I have to do, I don't even have to push, all I have to do, we'll move the clay down, in, bring it up with both hands so I don't push it off the wheel again like that. And just keep working the clay up and down. And this is a form of wedging too. It lets you get a feel of the clay. It lets you get a sense of the responsiveness of the clay. That little click in there as the wheel or the bat is loose. I should have patched it down. The wheel's going very fast now in the centering process. All this slip, I'm going to scrape on the outside of the bucket that goes back into the pug mill. I don't want it in the water because it'll make the water too slippy too soon. And I want to lubricate it with as fresh a water as I can. I'm going to make a series of bean pots now, so how far out I bring it this way and how high will determine the pot that we're making. And I'm going to open it by pushing my thumbs together right down into the eye of the clay, right into the center, within about 3/8 of an inch from the bottom. And if you want to, you can stop and check because it's just a guess. Stop the wheel, take a pin, and push down, and then measure. And I got about 1/2 an inch. I got a little bit more than what I thought, which is all right because I'm going to go back now. Take my hands. I'm going to use my middle finger as a rib. I'm going to use my right hand as the power source, and I'm going to open that straight across the bottom, about to there. And I'm going to lubricate it again. I'm going to do it just the opposite. This time, this hand becomes the rib, the right hand, and the left hand is the power source, so I can keep it steady. And I'm going to start from the inside and go to the center, making a flat bottom, but more important, compressing that bottom so you don't get an S crack in it. Now I have a rib of clay here, a roll with an undercut here and one on the inside. It's just a little bit higher. I don't know if that shows up on that or not, but the inside, my inside finger is just a little bit higher. And I'm going to maintain that relationship all the way up. All the way up. And try to keep an even wall till we get up to here. Close it in. And I use my knuckles for that first pull, right down to the bat. Don't leave a ski slope here. Right down to the bat. I had my finger underneath there, but my middle finger on the inside, and bring it up like that. Okay? Maybe you can see it better this way. Bring it up like so. Okay, now I'm going to lubricate it again, make sure there are no sticky spots. This time I'm going to make a groove down there. You see where that clay came off? And I'm pulling towards the inside. I'm bringing it in towards the center of the pot, because centrifugal force wants the clay to go out. So we want to counter for that. And I'm not running the wheel as fast as I can either. I got my thumbs touching each other. Let's see, I said I was going to make a bean pot. So we need a place to put a lid on a bean pot. I'm going to collar this in just a little bit. The clay is thick enough to do that with. And then I'm going to compress the top by holding my fingers on either side of the wall and then pressing down lightly with that. I'm going to use my middle index finger then to make a receptacle or a channel right in here for the lid to fit in. And I want a nice solid smooth rim on it. That's the most vulnerable part of a pot is that open lubricate it again, go down and get another one. See, I'm holding my thumbs together here. That way my right hand knows what my left hand is doing. I'm going to make this pull out a little bit. And I'm making a tall, real tall bean pot. And you can see where I left the rim a little bit thicker, because as clay goes out, it thins the wall. Dampen the wall now. The wall of the pot's about 3/8 of an inch. I'll make sure that it's all lubricated. And I forgot my rib. I'm going to make the design of this, the foot down here, the belly here, the shoulder here, the neck underneath here, and this is the lip. I want the shoulder to come out a little bit more. And I'm going to use my fingers as a rib because I didn't get it, and bring that shoulder up like so, and then let it quit right about in there. Okay, and make sure the channel, the lid is going to be open. Just slip off the rib. And I'm going to have to use it. Well, maybe not. I want a nice curve. I want a smooth curve. I don't want any dig coming up. Because as you go this way, gravity's pulling it down. As you go this way, gravity's pulling it down. As it goes around, centrifugal force is pulling it up. Okay, so that one's done now, and we'll get the water out of the inside. And you can check now what we have. Okay, the next thing is to separate the pot from the bat, and I'll do that with this wooden trimming tool. This one's a little dull, but I think it doesn't have any niches in it, and it has a point on the end. The thing I want to do is to keep that edge right alongside or conforming to the curve of the pot down here. And I'll move that down to the point where the clay, the thickness of the clay starts, and then holding on to it with both hands now, because the clay will want to take it out of my hand, is to push straight down towards the bat. Do not push in. Do not push in until you hit the bat, and then hit the bat. We'll take our twisted wire and cut through, and then remove the excess clay, and that goes back into the back into the plug mill, and I can take it off. Like that. This is good clay. Put it back in, don't let it dry out because it's already got the moisture in it. It's harder to take moisture out of a pot than it is to add it. All right, the next thing I'm going to put a lid on here, and I'm going to measure that spot where the lid wants to fit down in. Not from the edge of the rim to the edge, but at a point down in there where it will nestle and fit snugly, and a tool called a calipers. And we'll get this one off then, and I'll throw another pot, or another bean pot. Save that measurement till later. Or slip. You don't want any clay on there, just water. And we'll throw the lids. The technique of throwing off the hump. Center this mass of clay, and then I can throw two legs or two pieces of pottery off the same chunk of clay. Instead of one chunk of clay, one pot, I got one chunk of clay, and I can throw two pots. I'm going to throw a dish-shaped lid for that to get an idea how wide I want it here. This is the first one. How far I can bring it out, because centrifugal force is going to want to take it away from me. And I don't want it to sit up too high. I want it fairly flat. That looks like a fairly good guess, and I'll make a small depression in the clay and bring that up into a wall. And just trying to make it as even as I can. Double check here now and see where I'm going, and I'm going to bring that straight out. First of all, I'm going to take my thumb and find this place that's right below the lid here. Like that. I'm going to bring the lid out a little bit. I think I've got it a little bit too wide and too domed. I want it flatter than that. Let's see how I guessed on it. I guessed pretty close, which is unusual. But it's too domed. I'm going to take some off. Because I want a flatter lid. And I got that much to go. I'm going to dampen it. Be careful now, because centrifugal force wants it to go out, gravity wants it to go down. And I want a nice smooth curve here. Compress that again. I want a strong rim there, and I'll bring it out over my finger again. So we don't want it to get too thin out here, because that's what's going to take the brunt of the beating in the washing machine. And it's just a hair wider than I want it, so I can bring that back in just a bit, but it's harder to make it go in than it is to come out. So I like to throw a little bit short. There we are, perfect. The water out of it. I'm going to cut underneath now and make a flat surface under here, right along the curve of the pot, and that tells me where up and down is. And this time, instead of a twisted wire, I'm going to use, this is a film canister with a piece of fish line, cotton fish line on it, and it's flexible. It's nice and limp. To cut that off fairly straight so it doesn't dry crooked, I'm going to wrap it around that flat apron I pulled, and then hold one end steady and pull the other one through as it turns once. This is nice because the canister floats, it goes into your water, and you always know where it is. You don't have to keep fishing for it. Okay, so then I need a wear board. I'll use a bat then to pick this up. Now it curved on me, but if it sits down straight, while it's still flexible, it'll go back into round. Okay, this is the pot that we threw a little while ago that had the galley or the rim, and this was the lid. This is the lid part that was thrown on the wheel in this position. Then it was turned over. This part trimmed off, and this handle then was thrown on top of it, so that it fits into the rim. We measured the sides here with the calipers. So this set down in and snuggled right down into the pot. So this is the finished. Finished. Okay, we'll throw a series of shapes here, and using the different proportions of clay. Can I have that rag right there? And get the excess water off the wheel head so the clay sticks to it. And the first part of every throwing is to get the clay to stick to the bat and get it centered. In this case, I didn't quite get it stuck well. I'll throw a picture for him. So I want to get the clay a little bit higher than it is wide. In other words, I want the volume in relationship to the width, or the height in relationship to the width, a little bit higher than I would for a bowl. And once we got the clay centered, we can open it down to about 1/4 of an inch from the bottom, pull straight across the bottom, then go back in and compress it again, going from the outside this time to the center, so it doesn't crack. We can lift this clay, or that amount of clay up, keeping the wall even. The wall right here wants to be as thick as it is down there. And you can watch the fingers on the inside are a little bit higher than on the outside. I pulled some slurry up with it. It isn't good. That'll want to tear at the wall. And you can see the position of the inside finger is right there. So I'm starting right down to the bat for this pull, getting another groove, and lifting that much clay up. Now the clay is a little soft, so the torque, or the twist up here, is starting to make a little twist there, so I'll lubricate it and bring this in so centrifugal force isn't working against me. I'll keep the wall straight up and down, so I'm working with centrifugal force and not fighting gravity at the same time. And then I'll finish thinning this lip out, and the wall is thin to about 1/4 of an inch. And now I can shape it. I can go back down in and shape the body of the pitcher, the belly of the pitcher. And I need my little rib. Anyone got that rib? Do you want to go over and get that rib for me? I should take some of the slurry or the slip off the outside. Using a rubber rib over the top also helps compress the clay a little bit. Running it through your fingers and through the rubber rib. I'm getting the water out of the inside now because it would eat its way through. Don't want that water sitting down there. And this is just a little Rubbermaid frosting scraper? Is that what you would call it? Whatever. You can find them in your mother's kitchen. And it's nice because I can curve it. I can manipulate it to any of the shapes that I want the pitcher to go in. And I can get all of that slurry, all of the slip off of that, because that's all wasted. That's no good, and it would just cause a lot of problems. I'm going to collar the neck in. I've got a little bit thin, so I might have some trouble. I have to take it very gently. There, and coax it closed. Then make one more pull. Aim for the neck, and then pull the lip out because I'm going to distort this. Even it up a little bit. Nice graceful curve from the shoulder up to the neck and out towards the rim. Take all of the slurry or the slip off the rim. Make sure there's no water down in the bottom. And now while it's still round, before I distort it, I'm going to trim the bottom. I'm going to trim this a little bit of excess clay off the bottom while I have a chance. Undercut it slightly. I'll leave it on the bat, and then pull this edge down, and that's a nice place to hook a handle. Makes a nice flat space to stick a handle on. And of course I want my spout right across from that. I'm going to pinch it a little bit so we get a sharp edge right there, and it won't have a tendency to run down or drip, and if it were round. And then holding it with my finger, so pull up the sides and then pull out and form another sharp ridge right in there. Now I can cut the cloth loose, and it will sit until it's leather dry, and at which time the handle, we'll put the handle on. I don't have a slip bucket. I should have a slip bucket sitting here that I can throw all my stuff. Now I've got to get that off the wheel, or off the bat head. So with dry hands, and remembering that I took the rib and scraped the slurry off here, with dry hands I can get those little stirred up particles of clay to stick to me. So even though the pot's very thin, I just jiggle it loose, I can set it up on the wear board. Okay, let's try a low form this time. We'll do a bowl. And by the way, this is called throwing, and the only throwing that's done is to throw it down on top of that. Nobody seems to know why it's called throwing. There are a lot of theories, and that's one of them. And it might be the first person that saw the technique says throwing and it stuck for whatever reason. Again, we'll center the clay now. This time I'm going to have the clay a little bit lower, and I'm going to open it a little bit different. This time I'm going to open it with the heel of my hand here. That makes a curve, and we'll start the curve in the bottom of the bowl, and I'm going to leave the bottom a little bit thicker. Bowls should have a foot carved on them, so I'm going to leave enough clay in the bottom so I can carve a foot. Now I've got a curve, nice curve from the center on up the side of the bowl. I have a pattern to go by. I'm going to slow the wheel down because of the wide form, centrifugal force will take it, and I make that first pull. I like pots or bowls with rims on them, so I'm going to put the rim there now, and I know exactly how thick it's going to be, so I can aim from the bottom here to this point rather than out to here and then try to form that after it's gotten to be too thin. I'm going to smooth this down. I left a finger mark in the bottom, and I'll compress the clay again by going from the outside to the inside. One more pull, and I'm going to ease out on it just a little bit, and then reset the rim. Now I'm going to form it, or use the edge of my finger as a rib to make that curve come up nice and graceful so we can whip our pancakes and waffles. And Pam Clausen can have her pancakes in the morning. Get the water out of the inside because it starts working its way into the pot. The more you touch it with water on, you work it into the clay, and it becomes soft. I'm going to use the tip of my fingers now to go back into here and make it as smooth as I can so a spoon won't scratch on the finger ridges. And I knocked it out around a little bit. Doesn't make any difference, I'm going to distort it anyhow. So I have a bowl, standard sized bowl. That one would do my kids for cereal. And I'm going to take off a little bit of the excess clay down here so it dries faster, but not all of it, because I need that clay that's right down here to support that wall. Gravity wants to pull it down, centrifugal force wants to pull it out. Now before I cut it loose, again I'm going to pull a handle, and I'm going to put my fingers over here and pull the rim in and then down like this, so it forms a loop. Then when I'm holding the bowl, my thumb can go under here and I can tip the bowl in to use it as a batter. Then I need a place to pour it out, so we will holding the rim, pull the finger mark out and make a spout like that, and then cut it loose. Cut it loose from the bat so it gets a chance to dry and it isn't sticking to the bat and crack later on. White forms are hard to do. Here's the thing, I've got my excess clay up by my tools. That's not a good idea. I should have a pail or plastic or something to put those on so they don't get mixed up. I'm going to pry that. Now I can't lift this one off like I lifted the pitchers because it would collapse in my hand. So that's the reason for using the bats. Okay, we'll try one more. This bat, there's bat pins here, and the holes are a little bit big in the bat, so I use these pieces of clay then to hold it steady so it doesn't bounce back and forth. When you get older, it's harder to bend. Make sure the bat's down. Dampen this a little bit. And wipe the water off. Close it up right here so the water can't sneak underneath. And a center. We'll throw another bowl. I'm going to bring it up and down and feel it. It feels like there might be a bubble in it. I didn't wedge it quite long enough. There we go. That's better. And we'll get it into the center. Open it up with the heel of my hand, and the heel of my pen makes the curve again. Lubricate it with water. I want to make sure that it's a nice compressed bottom and smooth. Go from the outside to the inside, and then make the first lift or pull. Actually, the clay is doing it by itself. I'm just following it. I'm applying the pressure, and the clay wants to move itself, and I ride along. Make another groove down here, right down to the bat. Inside finger higher. And we'll straighten that wall out. And I'm going to make the rim. Make that now so I know I've got a target or a thing to shoot for. Make sure that it's lubricated so it doesn't stick. If there was a piece of dry clay there, it would stick and the whole thing would twist on. I'm going to use my finger now. The side of my finger is a rib, and lightly pull. I don't want them too thin. If you get this too thin, then it's going to be too vulnerable to the kitchen sink, and it'll break. This one's a little bit deeper. And we'll take the water out of the inside. Depends on what your needs are too, will determine the shape of the pot. Pancake batter, egg batter, frosting, egg whites will all want perhaps a slightly different shape. Getting the ribs out of there now, make the bottom smooth so the spoon won't scratch against it. Or that the beater, if you're using an electric beater, the shape of the beater will conform to the curve of the pot down there. Now take the excess clay off, but leave a little bit to support the wall, remember that. And then we'll pull that handle in by pulling it against our fingers and then making a loop. And be careful, I pulled down a little bit there. You don't want to cave that wall in. And then find a spot just opposite and pull back, pull in two different directions and make a pouring spout on it. This way you don't have to add handles. The next step to this is to let it dry, turn it upside down, and carve a foot on it. So actually it takes twice as long to do a bowl or a plate than it does a pitcher. Because the pitcher, the bottoms here are already finished. All we have to do is take our thumb and just wipe off the sharp edge. Okay, I'll take the excess clay away from here so it dries even. I guess I didn't get that much. Just did a little bit. And we'll allow the air to get under there so it dries even. Drying is a problem. The top lip will dry. This will dry sooner because it's exposed at the tip and on both sides. Where the bottom is enclosed all the way, and then it sits on this bat, so it holds the moisture longer. And if it dries too fast, this will dry and shrink and then lock. By the time the bottom shrinks, doesn't have anywhere to go, so you'll get an S crack.